We're going to call to order the budget workshop of the Board of Trustees of the Venus Independent School District on June 4th, 2026 at 6 p.m. And we do have a quorum. I'd like to welcome all of our guests here tonight.
Welcome.
And if everyone would please rise. We'll go to item 4, review of insurance options for next fiscal year.
President Gore, members of the board, good evening. This is the insurance options that we brought last week. Just to kind of a refresher, we've got TPS, PCAT, and TASB as the 3 potential insurance providers that we can go with. We're going to pull the quote back up. On the workers' comp, I wanted to explain this. General liability, property, auto, those are standard throughout the year. Those are the standard rates. Workers' comp can fluctuate. It depends on what our payroll numbers come out to. So you may have a higher TASB amount, a lower TPS amount, but they do a self-payroll audit where we submit our payroll data and then they adjust it from there, and that is factored into it. So if there is a variance between the workers' comp, it may be their payroll model where they apply it to the workers' comp, but that's going to be the explanation for the variance in those amounts on workers' comp. There was a question about garage keepers. That is the insurance for if we're housing vehicles. Typically, we're not housing vehicles. The only time that would happen is if somebody's using a district vehicle and they're going on a trip using and leaving their car there. But that's what garage keepers insurance is. All the auto liability is the same: 100,000, 300,000, 100,000. They're all the same rates on that. And primarily, we're looking at TPS and TASB as the 2 insurance options to go through. There was a question on, has TPS taken care of any claims with any of the references that I had gone? I reached out to Red Oak. They are covered by TPS on property, but they had no property claims with them, only auto. Cleveland ISD, they did have a hail claim, and they did say it was a good experience, and they worked with them going back to the original build-up roof instead of their TPO roof. Waxahachie ISD, they did have a large claim with TPS, but they're in the process negotiations right now. I did ask him, how was it? How did it go? And he said they're still in the figuring it out process. And with Palmer ISD, they had joined TPS, and they had a large claim shortly after joining. And they said they paid quickly, and they were very easy to work with. This is still the deductibles, PCAT, TPS, and TASB. So between TPS and TASB, the big thing to take away from on the property deductible is that it's going to be a little bit less with TPS if we have a major event, whether it's hail. We've got the fund balance either way for TPS or TASB, but that's going to be the deciding factor on the property insurance. Is we're going to have a little bit. It just depends on what happens. If it's multiple, but the 1% or 2% versus all the buildings that it may hit, that's kind of where that gets down to between them. We've gone through these. All of the apparel with TASB was a little bit cheaper, but that's going to be more of our isolated buildings. So if the ag barn, something happens to the ag barn, it's going to be a little bit less of a hit to us without all other perils. The way we do have it set up is I still have the agenda item to join the TPS co-op, and then if we select them, then we can select them. I'm still going to recommend TASB. They're within the price range. They're only about $8,000 difference between TPS and TASB, so I'm still going to recommend them. If TASB's $30,000 more, I have full confidence in TPS to do that. It's just within the service of we've had them, and I'm familiar with their service as far as auto claims, and I've had nothing but good experience with them.
With TASB.
With TASB, correct.
So that's why you would recommend them.
We've had history with them, and that's why I am recommending them. But
Okay.
TPS would be a completely fine alternative to go with.
I just know with TASB, and I think it was before you were here, we had a horrible experience with them. And I don't even know, are we still in some sort of legal anything with them, or is that all settled?
That's all settled.
That's all settled.
Yes,
And how did it settle? How was it, what was the final settlement? I don't remember.
I don't recall the final settlements, all of it, ma'am, but I do know that they did was most of the air conditioner units that they replaced. The biggest contention that we were had a disagreement with them was what was old damage to the roof and what was new damage. When I first got here, did walk around, document a few things, and you really couldn't tell, like for instance here, that dent in the roof was new or that was an old one. But they did replace all the air conditioner units. That was the major damage that we had with them, but we don't have anything else pending with them, ma'am.
And we still need new roofs, right?
Yes, ma'am. The biggest roof repair that we need is currently over the high school gymnasium. That's just a very old roof that we're going to have to repair over. It's like a $100,000 repair. We did do a repair because if you remember, it was leaking dead center of the gymnasium. We did do a repair, and that repair seems to be holding right now. We haven't had any further leaks in it, but we are going to need to address that particular rooftop.
And so there's no motion, there's no action required on this?
On this agenda item, this is just information, resetting
Okay.
the information.
Okay.
Then the next,
Oh, and then the next one,
the next one is if by joining the TPS interlocal agreement, that would allow us to approve TPS as our insurance with agenda item number 6.
okay. Did anybody have any other questions? No? Okay. So I have a question. So if we're not going with TPS, so we can, okay, you know what, hold on a minute. I'm gonna go at item number 5, consider approval of joining TPS interlocal agreement. And now I have a question. Does it cost money to join TPS?
It does not, but we would only join them if we are going to use their service.
And that is the only thing joining TPS, that's the only thing that they offer is the insurance? That would be the only reason for that?
We're joining their risk management pool, which allows us to have the competitively bid co-op. The same way in which we join a buy board co-op or a TIPS co-op, it's the same way we can purchase our insurance through their co-op.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about that? Because I think we've got to decide, we're only joining that for item 6, but we don't know how we're going to vote on item 6 yet. So I guess the question is, do we have a motion for anything for item 5? So we either need to approve it or disapprove, or if we approve it, and then the next one, if we do make a motion to go with TASB, then that one really doesn't matter how we voted.
What I would do is with 5 is if we're sticking with TASB, I would vote no to joining the interlocal. And then if we are considering if we would rather go with TPS, then I would join the interlocal agreement with agenda item number 5 and then select them, vote for them in number 6.
Okay.
Can the item 5 be tabled until after item 6?
Yeah, can we switch those? It'd be a lot easier.
It would be a lot easier to switch them.
Yeah.
You table it for 30 minutes.
Okay, so, item 5, or 5 minutes.
We do run into if we do select TPS, we need to be a member of the organization to select them. So if it's tabled, then we can table the other option to where it's
Oh,
sequenced.
so we have to decide on TPS first to say we want to be a part of them before we can even say we want to join them? So it has to go in
for
this
procurement,
order?
yes.
Okay, so we need a motion to either approve or disapprove or table. So I guess,
Hold on, I do have a question. And we did have such a big problem with the whole air conditioner thing, and we spent money out to have to get TASB to pay us. How do we feel that we're going to be able, if we have another issue, we are in Texas, are we going to have to pay again for another second party to come out and fight for us to get the money that is what we deserve, or with the ones that came back and said that they didn't have any issues? And so I guess that's my question. Do we feel that?
Well, I had the same question. I mean, but I've asked this question every time we talked about it, but I don't know if it was Joe or somebody else at our last meeting clarified that about the age of the roof, and it wasn't TASB we were having a problem with. TASB just simply said that the damage that was caused by deal wasn't, so the damage to the roof wasn't caused by the storm, it was caused by the age of the roof. So their stance was, we were saying it was caused by the storm, they were saying it wasn't. So in essence, somebody runs into your garage door, and then 3 days later it hails, and you try to claim your garage door being, I don't think that's, we weren't trying to snide anybody, but.
Right, but we also had the same issue where we were having to have them go up and talk about the is it soffits?
The parapet walls?
Yeah, whatever that is, because they weren't paying for that on the air conditioning. So, I mean, it's the same thing. We had to have that third party or second party person come out to help fight that, to get the money. So, again, that's just my question. And I do know that Buck did ask that the last couple of times. So, before I would say that I would like to go back with TASB is, it's like, do we feel confident that they're gonna actually pay for something else? Because again, we are in Texas, so.
I do, when you have the age of something, I know. Okay. I feel confident that if there's a claim that has happened, if it's a storm, I feel confident that we'll be able to pay it.
Okay, but as Mr. Langston says, Mr. Buck, the Waxahachie is in negotiations. So insurance companies.
With TPS.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
TPS or TASB, they're gonna pay the least amount as possible. So they're in negotiations now of how much they're gonna pay. So.
Well, and at this point, the damage is done. They were only gonna pay for new damage if there's new damage anyway. And it's on us to report that claim immediately, so there's no time delay or anything like that. So.
With Waxahachie, they are working with, in the same breath, a third-party adjuster too, between them. So that is something, just to make sure, it's always good to make sure fair value is, when you have two different parties that are trying to come to an agreement on something.
Madam President, I'll have a motion if you're ready. If everybody's done questioning.
Any other questions? No? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve joining TPS interlocal agreement.
Motion by Randall to approve TPS.
Scratch that. Take that. I make a motion that we do not approve
Okay.
the TPS interlocal agreement.
So a motion was made by Randall to disapprove joining TPS interlocal agreement. And we have a second by Greg. All in favor?
Well, that was a snipe.
Motion
Sorry.
carries.
I was about to say.
Way too much thought in that motion.
We'll go to item number 6, consider approval of insurance purchase for the 26-27 school year. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion to approve the TASB
Insurance proposal.
insurance proposal.
Motion by Amber to approve TASB as our 26-27 insurance purchase.
I'll second.
Second by Joe. All in favor? Motion carries. We'll go to item number 7, budget workshop.
He's like, yeah, great. Y'all again.
I am enjoying these meetings.
I bet you are.
No, I mean, it truly is. We're communicating and getting things out and getting to a common ground to where we are all happy, and it just takes talk or conversations. All right, so we've settled into a final budget. It's $27,979,181. We're down about $200,000 from last year, give or take. A lot of that is just we're about 20 kids lower on ADA projections. We were sitting at about, going into this year, it was about 2055. We dipped down to 2022, stayed at that, and then we started creeping back up this second semester, and we're looking like we're going to settle into about 2050. So that's a good thing. There's an upward trend towards the end, and so we'll see what that ADA is going into next year. As far as our revenue, our local sources, that's going to be our property revenue, interest, and miscellaneous revenue. So our M&O property from the Johnson County is going to be 5.8 million. 475 of this is interest, and then 200,000 of that is miscellaneous revenue that we take in at the district, whether it's athletic ticket sales, different things like that. With these state programs, this is going to be our per capita and foundation from the state. We're looking at 18.6 million as far as our foundation, and our per capita is 1.1 million. And then with our 599, that's going to be federal programs. That's going to be SHAR's revenue that we receive and indirect cost that we receive. This is what we settled into as far as the payroll for the different functions. I have the function right here, and then what the function is right here. So if there's any questions, pretty much all the numbers, from year to year, it's going to change a little bit. But for this year, from last year, it's pretty standard, about the same.
Never mind. I think it's somewhere else now. I think I remember learning our last one. I was going to ask about the library, but that's somewhere else.
Community services, right here.
Thank you. Okay.
Mhm.
See, I remember. Never mind.
Before these meetings, we've taken some
I know. Oh, and that number has changed. The community services number has changed with the different hours.
Once we got and I have a slide on the.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
Everyone good? Okay. We're going to go over because we do approve the food service and the debt service fund too. So we got our food service, we're at 1.7 million. Our local services, our local revenue is going to be our cash or digital payments that we take in here on campus. Our 58 are state programs. That's going to be TEA, a very small amount from TEA, and then most of our revenue for food service comes from TDA. And so you're looking at about 300,000 for breakfast and 1.1 for lunch. Once again, balanced budget. We've talked about this with our debt service. We have more in our fund balance to accommodate these payments coming in, but it is going to be the only budget that we're presenting that is deficit. This is how much we're going to take in property taxes and interest for our interest and sinking to pay these. Our state programs, our SAHI, the additional state aid for home exemptions, this might come in a little bit more. Somewhere between 7 and $1 million. So the deficit might drop down to about 1.1. We're just waiting for more numbers, but it's a good number. It's a conservative number to go with. So, but these will be the two other budgets that we'll be approving at the next meeting. Community library, we're down to 35,000 in payroll. We've got 5,000 in supplies, so that's going to be 40,000 total allocated, down from about 60 to 70.
So what are the new hours?
The new hours, I believe they're posted from 2 to 6 p.m. Ma'am, that is where we've been running Monday through Thursday, 2 to 6 p.m.
And that starts after the summer.
No, ma'am, we've already started that right now.
Yeah, we started it 26. May 26th, after school.
So we're doing 2 to 6, and then what about when the school year starts?
The school year, ma'am, that is still up for debate. The direction I've given Mrs. Roberts is that we're running per the MOU 30 hours a week. The direction I gave her that fits in with this $40,000 is 15 hours a week per service. We'll still offer it during the school year. Just have to look at how those 15 hours a week fit into the schedule.
So, and we're doing that based on the MOU?
The MOU says 30. I cut that in half, ma'am, to 15 hours a week.
And has there been a new MOU?
No, ma'am, that MOU is dated 1999.
So with that MOU, I think some things probably weren't happening on the city side. So at what point is that MOU no longer in effect because they have not held up their end of the agreement?
Actually, ma'am, looking at that MOU was never a legitimate MOU because, all MOUs usually signed by the board president, really. That MOU particularly was signed by the superintendent at the time and the city manager, which is, I don't sign MOUs. That is something that you sign, ma'am. So that MOU, and also I know Mr. Thompson researched and also the city manager researched it, couldn't. According to the MOU, it's supposed to give us $1,000 per year. We don't ever recall receiving a payment at all. So, what I told Ms. Roberts, when they're still discussing at the city what they're going to allocate towards the community library. Once they decide that, then we can increase hours. But right now, we can only afford to run just 15 hours a week, not the 30, and that puts us within our budget. But we can look at reducing those hours in the school year if this board wants us to look at those. But it is balanced for us to, with the $40,000, run it during the school year also.
Okay, because, I mean, our students, absolutely, I want them to have access to the library. However, that is a municipal function. A library is a municipal function, not a school district function.
It seems to me that when Connie Walker was running the library, she was taking advantage of the city and the school as one function, and she was able to get programs and stuff that she otherwise couldn't get. I don't know if we're doing that anymore, but that's what she was telling us, that it was truly a help to her as a librarian to have them together. I don't know what we're doing now under the new librarian, and she's been retired now for several years, so I don't know where we stand now, but I do remember her having a conversation about that with us at one point.
Miss Roberts does a whole lot of after hours with, let's just go back to this week. Monday they had probably between 60 and 70 children sign up and were attendants on the Nerf Wars. She has quite a bit of attendance during the summer. And I do remember Miss Walker and all of that. I don't think that she did as much in the summer. She did the summer reading program and stuff like that. She is actually doing a lot of projects and stuff like that for them to actually do.
Well, I wasn't actually talking about what projects we have. I was talking about even some funding and materials and stuff that she could get through public library grants and so forth.
Of having a public library as opposed to just having a school library. If you advertise it as a public library, community library, then there's some possible advantages as far as getting grants and funding.
That's what I was talking about, the financial end of it, not the.
But are we getting any
Program.
grants right now for it?
That's what I was just
Yeah.
saying. I have no idea.
Yeah. Do you know if
Not
we're
that I'm
getting
aware, for the library, no, not that I'm aware
no
of.
grants or anything?
I mean, nothing that is run through the finance office.
Okay, and it would be. I mean, you would know about the money coming in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would need. The only other, I think, and it is a tiny amount, but like, I think, and it's not even a grant. I think it was like $1,000 or something, like a theater group gave to the. We're not a very small amount that is not consistent in an annual basis. So just in case there's this. I mean, I do remember working with Catherine on something at one point, but it was a very small amount. Nothing that is contributing to running it and helping offset the cost of doing it. It was just a one-time, like, hey, here's this, and then invest or have this certain group here, and then enrich the library.
Do we charge for library cards?
No.
Okay.
So not to be super difficult with our neighbor and municipal partner, but is there any legal backing if you sign an MOU that you're obligated to pay the $1,000, the piddly $1,000? Because if not, $26,000 in arrears. That if they can't provide proof they've paid us at all and we haven't gotten it, I mean, just the piddly $1,000. I mean, not that we want a recourse or even go after a recourse, but is a MOU legally binding that they should have paid that? I mean, I
know-
was on the council for 10 of those years, and we approved that every year. I mean,
Yes, sir. You are correct. It's not legally binding if you don't hold up to your end of the bargain. And the city manager did work with me back and forth. He went back and checked his records. He could not find any receipts to where that $1,000 was given to us yearly. And the same thing over here, when our finance department, we couldn't find any proof whatsoever either, sir.
so have they commented on wanting to help going forward?
That is something we're trying to work out in the interim. We have reduced those hours to work within our budget because we simply cannot afford to run it for 30 hours a week on our own dime with the loss that we've accrued.
They're in budget meetings also, so I guess it'll depend on what their budget looks like.
And did we say it is or it's not legally binding?
Ma'am, I don't think that, just from my knowledge of MOUs, any MOU that I receive here at the district, the school board president does sign them. It's not traditionally that the superintendent would sign an MOU. I don't think it was legit from the start, unless things were different in 1999, where the superintendent could sign them. I don't think it was. I still think that a school board president would sign that MOU, but it's not a school board president's signature on those. It is was the current superintendent at that time.
Well, and I would also think if they don't uphold their end of even if it was all legit, if they don't uphold their end of the MOU by paying the $1,000, then I would think it would no longer be good. So, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. There was a question on why is ESS or our substitute costs going up? The fill rate has increased. Typically, in the past, it had been anywhere from 60 to 70% on the fill rate, and now we're hovering about 80%. We did have some floating subs this year. We get floating subs. It could be a multiple of reasons. It could be somebody's out on FMLA. It could be whatever the reason for the floating sub is, but we did have higher floating sub costs this year. Based on what I've put in there this year, that's pretty much where we're going to settle into this following year, and I don't anticipate us blowing past that. We'll watch the data, but at least this is where we've settled into this year, and if the fill rate stays about the same and maybe the floating subs costs go down, then it'll be a little bit less, but we're right on the money with about 180.
And the floating sub is just, they, instead of making $80 a day, they make $100 a day. So
Yeah,
once you work 11 days, consecutive days, your sub rate goes up. So that's the difference I know at the middle school, they had 2 people that were out for almost the entire year. So.
Bringing it back to the phone stipend, as far as the alternative to paying the phone stipend as part of a salary, I did look at phone carriers. Most of your business accounts are $30 to $50, the $30 being the introductory rate, then it goes up over time, so then you have to switch. Not that we don't want to do this, but it does bring in asset tracking repairs, and then the people that do have the phone have to carry 2 phones, and we're within the same margin of the phone stipend per month at $50. So the phone stipend, when we had to move graduation the last week, I mean, this thing lit up. I'm talking to Ashley, I'm talking to Rosie, I'm talking to Laura, we're coordinating, I'm letting people know I'm bringing I mean, it may not get used every single day, but there are some times where, you know, I've talked with Miss Roden where she's like, hey, can you call me? Because she's at Region, and it's not going to bring the district down, but she needs an answer right then. And so it is good to have this investment, whether it's via cell phone or via the stipend. We do need to have some sort of instant access communication among the top level people for decision making. And I do feel that the $50 a month on the stipend side keeps us from having to asset track and repair phones and carry 2 phones around.
There'll be another VES, won't they? They have 2 APs, don't they?
Yes, it'll be for the admin side.
There'll be another spot on there.
Yeah. On the stipend review, so we took our stipend data that was given to y'all, and then we ran it through and did some just baseline checks. You know, if stipend X is $500 and stipend X is over here and it's $455, that got flagged. So 25 got flagged for review. 19 of those were a lesser amount, and that's because they were prorated. if you come in the school halfway through the year and it's a $600 phone stipend, you get $300, because if we do the 600, that would be it could be a misuse of public funds because they weren't there for that. So a lot of the 19 were just lesser amount, prorated amounts, because they came in at some point during the year. 6 of those where the stipend amount was higher than what was listed on the stipend was due to a labeling error in Ascender. The way that we do stipends in Ascender is that we have to make a unique, it's called a billet, but it's a unique, basically like a product code for each stipend. And so depending on how it's typed in, we're not all typing, or not we, but Priscilla, when she's typing it in, she may type cross-country assistant. And if it's the same one, it may be cross-country assistant boys, cross-country assistant girls, but it's the same amount. So when this data is pulled, and I'll show it right here. So you may see somebody that has a cross-country assistant stipend. When I take the report from Ascender, it's not a very clean report. It's kind of hard to digest. And so I try to clean it up in best way so you can see it from a top-level view. But when you run it through Excel, the cross-country assistant, since it's labeled the same, it summarizes it into 6,000 instead of 3,000. So really, had it been labeled boys cross-country assistant at 3,000 and girls cross-country assistant at 3,000, it would have broken it out like that.
I only push back on this one because I don't recall in the past, because we only have one head cross-country coach.
Mhm.
So I don't recall us breaking it up into boys and girls because they all went together. Like there wasn't, like the boys didn't go one time and girls didn't go. They always went together. So do we know, like, when was that essentially broken apart or brought back together? 'Cause that's the only reason why I push back on that, is because you have one head cross-country coach, but we have a girls and a boys assistant.
That was my piggyback on that. Is there a head boys coach and a head girls coach?
So I've
So if
worked
there
with,
isn't a head girls coach and a head boys coach, why would there be a assistant boys and assistant girls?
Yep, same pocket.
we have identified that
Unless we're just trying to get somebody more money.
we have identified that stipends do need to be cleaned up. That is something that we do want to do as a district, and it is how this was historically done. But what we're trying to do go forward is make sure it's clean and we have accurate data for you, and that involves labeling it, making sure, like I've been working with Gober to get the number of stipends, that athletic stipends should be out there, so that way when I go to the system, if I see 3 cross-country, like on his, and I've included the sheet over there, cross-country staff, there's going to be 2 positions, high school and middle school. There's going to be a head coach and an assistant coach. So that's what we're doing going forward. So that will be cleaned up on that, where it's just going to be one head coach and one assistant coach. So he's given the positions out, the stipend numbers out, so we have the data now to make sure that it reconciles with what we're saying we're doing, and then our system also reconciles with that too.
So first of all, let me give a huge congratulations to this stipend manual. That's first time in forever we've actually had descriptions of the stipends and what's expected of them for everything. Number 2, the amount of work y'all have put in. I don't know who all y'all is, but whoever's done all this stipend, all the questions we've asked, thank you very much. But my question is for Mr. Gatewood, is going forward, whose responsibility is it to make sure that, like, there's a guy on here who gets $22,000 in stipends, and all of the jobs fall under the one stipend. Well, there's an assistant track coach. The other ones are all as assistant athletic director, boys coordinator. They're all the exact same job description, yet they're making $22,000 in stipends for that. Whose job is it? And I know I guess we've said, since there's nothing really against board policy or illegal going on, that we're not messing with that for now, right?
That was my recommendation, but the board can choose whatever direction they want to go to. My recommendation was to, for instance here, clean them up through attrition. Like say, for instance here, that particular coach leaves, we adjust it when we hire someone new, or
So,
you could
I
just
agree.
fix it.
I thought that's what was recommended. So we're not gonna mess with anybody's salaries right now, but that's ridiculous. This person ought to be at every game, home and away, and they're backing up to get their money. That's how much stipend abuse there is right there. And I know why it was done, but $22,000 on top of a teaching stipend, which they don't even teach classes. And then we're trying to explain to these teachers why we can't get them more than $50,000 a year, but somebody's over here making $80,000 as in, 50 for teaching and 22 for, stipends. I just think that's, whose job is it ultimately, is that gonna be to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, I want to piggyback off of that one right there, because when we have the assistant athletic director, and I think we brought this up before, and the boys coordinator, can we go back to when we developed the assistant athletic director? Because I thought that we traded one for one. So instead of having a boys coordinator, we essentially did the assistant athletic director. So even going forward, because I think we had talked about this also with the girls coordinator, is we were tentative on the girls coordinator because we were going to wait and see if every girls sport had a female coach, and it looks like we're achieving that, correct? So again, what is the need for a girls coordinator if we don't have to have that female quote that we were thinking we were going to have to filter into every sport? Because I thought we were going to kind of wait and see
And
whether
that's-
or not we needed that girls coordinator if we couldn't fill all positions with a female and meet that expectation. But it looks like we have somebody in that spot, and again, we have the same person doing the assistant athletic director and the boys coordinator. I feel like that should all be consolidated.
You're saying a female and a girl as a girl's head?
And, okay,
So
let
instead
me-
of the girls coordinator, hold on, instead of the girls coordinator, we had, I think last meeting, we had talked about putting somebody in there to fulfill that it is mandated that every girls sport has to have a female coach
Of some
sort.
level. Gotcha,
Yes,
okay.
that travels with them, that goes with them. So that is what we were going to put in there, was to ensure that whoever went into that was expected. But with the hiring of the staff, I went through all of the staff, and we do have a female coach in every girls sport. So I go back to say, what is the girls coordinator position going to be doing?
Okay, so
That
hold
the
on.
athletic director, that the assistant athletic director wouldn't be doing.
Okay, so let me just go off of that, because I thought we had spoke about keeping the girls coordinating position, because we did need a female to do that, but get rid of, well, no, but to get rid of the boys coordinator, because that's what the assistant AD would be doing. I thought that was
See,
more.
this is my question about the responsibility. I'm gonna go along with yours, but then there's another caveat. I thought we talked about getting rid of the assistant athletic director, because we had an athletic director who was a head basketball coach, therefore couldn't donate, who couldn't give all of his time to during basketball season, therefore we had an assistant. Well, now we've moved him to pure athletic director. I think he coaches tennis, but he's now a pure athletic director. So in a school our size, is there a need for an assistant athletic director? Because the whole reason we had the assistant athletic director was because our athletic director was a head boys, or maybe your athletic director is your head football coach and you need an assistant during football season to take over. But since we have a pretty much a pure athletic director now in a 4A school, which is a little bit rare, but I thought, so that's the convoluted. So Ms. Crafton has a view, you have a view, I have a view, and they're all different. So my question is, who's in charge of this, and why is it so convoluted after?
I thought it was what you said.
After
but-
six,
that too,
after all
That's
these
what I
meetings we've
remember
had, not to mean a regular board
as
meeting we talked about,
saying.
then three. So I would just like to hear exactly, and I know the answer. I know, Mr. Gatewood, you're responsible for, I don't talk in circles right there, but somebody has to be held accountable of why we now have, when we moved him to pure athletic director, then there's no legal need, then there's no really a need to have an assistant anymore. And that's not, sometimes that just happens. Sometimes you lose positions due to a RIF or lack of finance. No, it's not a lack of finance, but sometimes it's just not needed anymore. And we made a move, which I agree, those are Mr. Gatewood's decisions, but now we have an athletic director, an assistant athletic director, a boys coordinator. What is he gonna do? I've read the job description, but the job description is the same as the assistant athletic director, which is the same as the athletic director. So, and then we have a girls
Our
coordinator.
AD does not teach.
I know, ma'am, our AD does not teach, no, ma'am. This is the first time, the reason we had the assistant athletic director, because Coach Gober, during basketball season, was just so poured into basketball season, and he would neglect the other sports. So you had an assistant athletic director. Now Coach Gober, to give a more oversight over athletics. He's moved to a less strenuous sport, which is tennis. It's not that demanding. He's able to provide more general oversight of different things. And that is something that's a legit point. Now we have someone who's able to give their full attention to athletics full time. That is something, if the board would like to eliminate that their stipend, that is not a problem. That is totally up to the board.
And that, I'm not here to, my point is more of oversight than it is of taking money away from people. I get they signed a contract, they've got a decent understanding of what they're gonna be doing next year, but you know, but then we have, like you and I've talked about, we have all these principals that have to go do duties. When we're paying 4 people, those 4 people, for that money, they ought to be at every game. Why do we need other people to do duties? There ought to be, those people are, you know, we talk about after hours stipends are for after hour work. We're talking about, you know, the $10,000 people got from grant money, and we're micromanaging that. Well, we're looking into that.
Making sure we're compliant with
But
requirements.
are we requiring paperwork from all these people of how they're backing up to get their $22,000 of money when, you know, you gotta, now, I'm just saying, somewhere along the line, we have to clean that up, and that, I'm gonna leave that up to the superintendent. He makes those decisions of what it is. If you're telling us you need all those positions, that's our job to support you or disagree. But as of right now, I don't think that's a decision you made. I think you inherited a mess, and then we're trying to move in the direction. I'd just like to go, you know, maybe for this year, this is one thing, but then let everybody know, effective 27, 28, we're gonna have an athletic director, period. Or we're gonna have an athletic director, boys and girls coordinator, or we're gonna have an athletic director, an assistant athletic director, no boys. And then if you choose to stay, knowing that that's gonna be, you know, Ms. Buck got her stipend from that grant, but that stipend went away, so that's a $15,000 pay cut between those grants that all went away this year. That's just something she's gonna have to deal with. But you knew up front that was gonna happen, so I guess that's a long way of saying, we keep saying it over and over again, but it seems like every year, instead of fixing it, we just keep adding to it.
Well, when do we draw the line in the sand and we fix it? Because at some point, we're dealing with taxpayer money.
Yep.
And we're throwing away on what these 2 stipends that I'm looking at here, $11,500. That is a lot of money.
15.5.
Well, I didn't even look at the bottom one. I was just doing that one. But yeah, 15.5.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point do we say, what are we supposed to, what is our position here as a board, as a trustee?
And
I mean, is it to wait and we'll just kick it down the road to the next year? And then we'll just kind of do half and kick it down the road? I don't know if that's why people voted for us, but.
I think it goes back to when we're talking about top of the house, right? Because there's always that perception is like, oh, over there at the admin building, they have the biggest salaries. And now we're looking at 4 very big leadership positions in those, and we're still questioning, is there enough work to go around? Again, if you say yes, then all those make sense. But I think the questions that we've asked, again, going back to the conversation we had about the girls coordinator, is that we were mandated to have a female, but now we've filled all those roles for the first time. You know, it was just one of those, like, I really thought we were going to wait to fill that and see if we filled all the coaches. And at the end, if we felt we didn't have enough female coaches, then we would offer that to somebody who we currently had on staff to fill that with that expectation. Because if we have a girls coordinator, I would expect her to be at every single. And has that been communicated to her? Again, that's what I would expect. I don't know if that's in the expectations here, but are we getting the work for what we're paying? Or are we just, again, trying to get people to come work for us and just throwing money at the...
These are the tough conversations and the tough decisions
Correct.
that we have to make.
Correct.
That's what our job is.
And on top of that, what educational value are we getting out of it? I get the athletic director. Nobody's athletic director teaches a class. I mean, and if you're Waxahachie doesn't have an assistant athletic director. I mean, so now they do, their football offensive defensive coordinators don't teach classes, so I guess but when you get to be that big, maybe you can do that. But, you know, we have, I'm not sure, but Alvarado has 1,200 kids in high school too. That's almost double our size. So it's if we're getting, if this person is teaching 5 periods a day or 6 periods a day, and it's an educational value to us, but we have an athletic director not teaching. We have an assistant athletic director not teaching. Well, I don't know on the schedule, he may have some in the class, but, so I'm just,
Is that position?
Yes, ma'am, inclusion, yes, ma'am. Not full-time, like, hey, for instance, here I have a teacher of record for 30 kids in Algebra 1, not like that, no, ma'am.
How many's on his case, do we know about how many's on his caseload though? Does he have a big caseload where he might need to be in the classroom more?
I can take a look at that, what his caseload is, look at his master schedule and see what kids are assigned, though, ma'am. I don't have that
again, I know
information in front of me.
this
Yeah,
kind of
no,
a,
you're fine.
it's kind of a blasting, and I don't mean that towards you, Mr. Gatewood, necessarily, but I agree with Ms. Gore that though, is at some point, you know, I've been there before. I get it. I've based everything for this upcoming year on my current salary, and I know everybody has a question about their salary, and I would, to say I'm gonna cut you by $8,000-9,000 on July or June, that's a tough conversation to have. Maybe a conversation for, you know, back when you could still go get another job somewhere if you didn't like it, but I do think at some point we've got to fix that, or like y'all said about the grant people, you know, that frustrated a lot of people who put a lot of time and effort into the educational grants, that we have to document their time and effort of proving why they deserve the grant.
I don't think it was us that said that. I think it was the requirements of the grant.
Well, the board asked
So if
questions.
that's how that was taken, it shouldn't have been. It was just following what the grant said that we had to do to get the grant.
Right, but so anyway, if we're having to, well, either way, if you have that stipend, there should be some documentation that we're getting, that's a necessary stipend, and you know, right now we have all this. Anyway, I'll beat that up bad enough.
I guess the only thing that we can do right now is, like we've said before, is we can only go forward for next year because people have already signed their contracts for this year.
Yeah, I don't think there's any.
Yeah, we can't do anything this year. We have to look forward for it next year.
But I don't think a stipend is on a contract, and a stipend can be taken or given however, correct?
I mean, but if you're signing your paperwork, if I'm signing my paperwork saying I'm doing this, this, and this, and this is what I expect my pay to be, and I've agreed to stay here, and you've offered me a contract, and
You've
I'm
signed
doing
it as a teacher/coach.
right.
The stipend isn't on that contract.
Yeah, stipends are
Right.
Stipends can come and go.
But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, if
It's
and I'm-
understood,
ethically.
yeah,
it's
ethically,
understood that you're gonna get it.
because I mean, honestly,
So
right
I
now it's
don't-
going to be the hardest time to find a job, especially for a coach. And so you've already signed that contract back in
No,
March.
I get that. I just want to say that a stipend can come and it can go.
Right, yeah.
It's not a guaranteed thing.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing the job that you should be doing for the stipend, it can also be
Well,
taken
just
away.
like coaching,
Yes.
coaching's come and go too. That you have no right to your coaching position. That could come. So what we can do is we can, if we feel like the correct moral thing to do is leave the salaries alone for this year, we can get the expectations out of those positions. So if that's the case, then you know there's our duty schedule right there. There's a lot of things that go on in our district that people have to cover for. There's a lot of classes that need to be covered here and there. That I'm not saying that's your job, but you know there's a lot of things that you could help with that.
With that being said, didn't you say you looked at the assistant AD and then a coordinator, and it's the same job? It's the same stipend description? So how can you be naming, that'd be like me saying you're teacher, so I'm gonna give you 2 salaries.
Or science, math, science.
I mean, I'm just saying,
I mean, you're the one that put that one.
I don't wanna take anybody's pay away either, but if we're looking at what they're doing for that, if it's the same thing, that doesn't make sense at all.
I mean, if you read them, the wording's different, but ultimately it's the same job. I mean, it's not, you know, what is another confusion of why there's a boys and girls coordinator. That was created
Right.
somewhere along the line just to get somebody that wanted more money to get more money. That was, which I get it. That's a different leadership tactic, but you know,
I think Joe had a question.
Well, I don't think that there's anything that we can do for this budget, because these folks have a expectation, even though they signed a contract as a teacher, they have an expectation to get that money as this extra assignment. So morally, ethically, I wouldn't be comfortable in saying, no, you're not gonna get it. But I think the board has every right to instruct the superintendent to look at these concerns and for the next budget year, do this. And the other thing, it looks like we've pretty well got all the head coach positions pretty well aligned, except the football coach is still out there.
And girls soccer.
So,
Football coach.
Football's,
No, there's one left on football.
Oh, an assistant coach, okay.
okay, sorry, I was looking at that, I'm like, no, we've got the head coach.
yeah, but look at the money. And then everything else is pretty well aligned on the 5,000.
Okay, I'm sorry, what do you mean, look at the money?
Well, the head coach is 7,500. And then you go down to the rest of them, head volleyball coach, basketball, all the rest of them are pretty well on 5,000. So we're still out of line for the head football coach.
I think your head football coach is always gonna be the one that makes more in any district that you go to. And when
Why?
you, I don't know. I just know that me doing, stipend reviews through a multiple rounds.
I understand, but
I would
why?
say that's usually based off of productivity. And football usually is the highest, most productive. Not necessarily for every district, so that may be something that we need to look at is on these sports, does it align with that sports productivity? Are we spending the money properly?
You say productivity, I'm looking at job responsibility.
Well,
Is-
and
Is there
that's
more
where-
job responsibility? Is he working harder with more kids involved as a head football coach as opposed to a head baseball coach?
Yes.
Yeah, you might have 60 or 80.
I haven't been a
Ideally,
coach,
that's
so
an
I don't know.
expectation for the superintendent stuff, but ideally, you should have 3 times the number of people in football that you have in any other sport. You've got 3 times the number of coaches in football than you have in any other sport. So I would say consistently, as a general rule, a head football coach is well worth $2,000 more than any other sport. I don't think you'll have any other coach that would argue that. Now, here, it's a little bit different when you look at it because our football numbers aren't that much bigger than our baseball numbers or our basketball numbers. So I don't know. That's a matter of that's a superintendent thing of figuring out who the right person is to get on the bus and make sure. So, but economically wise for the position, I would say that was probably that should be a lot more responsibility and a lot more work goes into that position, coordinating responsibility than because a freshman football, JV football, varsity football, each one of those have 45 kids on the team in an ideal situation. Now, we don't have a freshman, so those may be conversations for our superintendent to have with somebody about why our numbers are down and productivity isn't there. But generally speaking, your football coach would.
Donald, did you have a question?
Well, no, it's okay. And Lenny, you may have already sent this out to us, or it may be something that we're not allowed to have. I don't really know. I'm just coming into my sophomore year of my tenure here. So is there a compensation by person report on these stipends? Like a report where it says this person gets this. Do we have that already? Okay, so it's one of the things that was emailed. I may have just missed it.
Oh, no, we had the other, are you talking about the one that?
Not per.
We had a whole list.
Who gets these?
Yes,
What
we had a whole
person
list.
by name got these?
Yes, we had a whole
We
list.
were emailed that?
Yes, yes, sir.
And they're on that list.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here looking at this. I didn't even look down at this. I apologize.
And
I'm
we,
going back to freshman year. Thank you.
Kindergarten, please.
Whoa.
I have another question, and this is before you were superintendent. But we had a requirement that all coaches had to have their CDL. I don't know what happened with that. It went to the wayside, obviously, because we don't have that many that have a CDL on here. But I know that that was a requirement for quite some time. Do you remember, Greg?
I do remember, and it wasn't even all that long ago, but I'm sure what happened is we decided to hire somebody that didn't want to get CDL, so we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens a lot. That's how a lot of these stipends came about, is we wanted to pay somebody, and we didn't have any other way to pay them but give them a bigger stipend.
So is it written?
And so that's my frustration with the stipend. I threw that out there 2 meetings ago, so I'm just keeping my mouth shut and letting y'all fight with it because you know how frustrated I am with that whole thing.
Okay, so yes, back to the
CDL. Is it in writing?
I do not think it ever was in writing. When I was on the board the first time, it was stated that they had to have somebody in their, like Mr. Oakley said, it had to have somebody in that sport to be able to bust them. And it wasn't, he didn't care. But then I remember, who was the transportation lady that, no, after Kathy, but before? Okay, yeah. I think she came in and said they didn't have her budget didn't have it to pay for them to go get tested. I think when it was questioned.
When I coached here, it was an addendum to your contract. You signed a contract. When they interviewed you and they hired you, they said, do you understand before you take this job, you have to get your bus driving license. If you don't have it, you have until X to get your bus driving license. And that was an addendum to the contract. If you didn't meet that, then come February, March, when contract renewals came up, the athletic director called you in, and we did have one person that called them in and said, hey, sorry, do you have your license and have it? And now, there were a couple medical exemptions, but then that's a whole other thing. You go to the doctor, and doctor says you can't drive a bus for whatever reason, but it was an addendum to our contract back then.
Okay, well, that's just something I wanted to bring up because I know, again, that was before you were in this position, so.
But I think we have 4.
We can make that happen. That is usually standard protocol for any district. I don't care if you're 6A, 2A, 1A. Usually the coach, you pull up there. The coach is the one driving the bus.
You had sent an email out about somebody you were interested in for transportation. I thought I read they were certified to teach the course, aren't they?
Yes, he is, sir. That's why I'm sitting there
when I
smiling.
was every school I'd been at, Stephenville, Quinlan, we spent the first 3 days of 2-a-days of beginning of our contract, that 10 extra days we get, and we sat through the bus class and everyone got it together. That was one of our requirements. So I don't know, I'm not telling anybody how to do it, but there was, every district I've been in, you're required to have, and I think we have 4 people in the entire district, 4 coaches in this entire district that have their CDLs, which means that Ms. Buck or Mr. Camacho loses a teacher.
And one of those we lost this year.
Just to drive a bus. Mm-hmm. So now it could be a tested subject or a not tested subject, but now you're losing a teacher because somebody else didn't get a bus driving license.
Okay, did anybody have any more questions on slide number 2?
No, but can I make one more comment about just the stipend manual itself? Since we're talking about job duties and responsibilities, I would just encourage us to go back and look at the job duties and responsibilities, because what I don't want us to have is like tentative, fluffy language. I want it to be where when we talk about manage the use of facilities within the girls' athletic period by whatever the expectation is. Because if we leave it very open, if we're expecting the girls' coordinator to be in attendance at every girls' sport as the admin on duty, that is the specifics in which if that's what we need in that position, and I'm not saying that has to be one, but I'm saying just reading through some of these responsibilities, it's support a positive and disciplined culture throughout girls' athletics. How? By what measure? Because if we're trying to measure that at the end of the year, how are we measuring that?
Well, some of that would come within like disagreements in the coaching staff. The first level would be go to your coordinator. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how that's how we do it, but that's how I've seen it done. So, and then before it goes to the athletic director or somebody else, like not necessarily a grievance, but just something that needs to be, somebody cussed on the sidelines of a basketball game. That would be something the coordinator would call them in And,
Because it even says this position supports the daily operation. I would expect that the girls coordinator is primarily responsible for the daily operation instead of supporting, like in partnership with the athletic director. They would be responsible for the daily operation of the girls athletic program, right? So I mean, I'm just.
but typically
that's
you would
just
have, you would have that position and then the athletic director.
Correct.
So we have that position, then an assistant, then the athletic director, so, you know, it'd be level 3
So
of a
you're-
grievance before it even gets to the, before it gets to the board.
Okay, I think we're ready to
No,
move on.
I will add this here. I do want to caution saying that the coordinator will be the administrator on duty. You got to remember these coordinators, they're not administrative certified. Like say for instance here, if you have John Smith over here, he's misbehaving, they don't have the authority to
Yeah.
criminal trespass warning. So
Yeah,
it needs
that
to be
was
an
just-
actual administrator.
Whatever you feel is appropriate, like if that's not appropriate, that's totally fine, right? That was just maybe a loose example, but just something specific, right? Whatever the expectations are, that we're specific in those to be able to measure it and hold them accountable at the end of the year. If that's something that we're going to be able, oh yeah, this worked out really well. Well, how did we measure that if we're just loosely saying that they provide support? How?
I just want to make sure I understand my marching orders because, you know, I'm just the guy that I'll follow my marching orders to the T. So what we're doing this year, they're going with these here stipends, and my job is to go back and let them know next year this particular stipend doesn't exist. Let them know way a year and a time. This year doesn't exist going into next year. Is that factual?
Unless you think as superintendent that position, that we need those positions. That's your decision to make.
Right.
But if you do not think so, then yes, those are your marching orders.
Not a problem, ma'am.
Okay.
I will follow them to the T.
Yeah.
Because I do agree with some of it here. Like for instance, here I'm used to just seeing at the high school level. I'm used to just seeing the athletic director. Then you have the coaches, and I'm only used to seeing coordinators at the middle school level. I am not used to seeing coordinators at the high school level. Just being totally transparent. So that's kind of a shocker. Bingo.
And that stipend manual, that is a starting point.
No, and
That-
this is
that
great
is-
because we've had
It is
nothing.
awesome.
We've had nothing
That is
before.
what I just, we're at a point to where we want to clean it up. We want to make it better. I need it cleaned up so I can properly project it, know how many stipends are out there, and that is a starting point that we're going to build on because we do want to make sure it's clean, it's efficient, and we can make sense of it with next budget.
Madam President, he just asked about marching orders. We talked about the bus driving thing. Is that something that as a board, we're saying economically we're gonna commit to paying for those licenses? Or is that, I know it's his decision personnel wise, but is that gonna be an addendum? Is that gonna be something cause you're talking about a few $100s per coach at least. Are we paying for the test? How many tests are we paying for? I know that's a lot. We brought the bus driving up, so I wanted to see.
I think right now, he just probably needs to get his head wrapped around exactly what that would be, and then I would think it would come back to us as an agenda item, probably for a budget amendment or something like that. It's kind of what I was thinking.
I just want to make sure he was clear on, he asked for those, if that's something we're expecting out of him, then.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's something we need to get back to, though.
I agree with that. That's something typically you see. I don't care what district I've been in, from Corsicana to Arlington. When the bus pulls up, 9 times out of 10, it's the coach. Only time you see other bus drivers if you have a game that's 4 hours away, and the coaches just obviously can't drive 4 hours and coach the game and drive back. That's the only time typically I would see someone else different than the coach. Yeah. Well, Bonham comes here, so thank God.
Well, I'm thrown off because and there's just some of the other labeling errors where it's, we have it listed in the manual as behavior teacher, but then it just was labeled special ed. So cleaning up the labeling in our system is a top priority between me and Mr. Martinez to make sure that that data is accurate. That list that y'all had that had employee names by stipends, I want to be able to give you amounts and have the stipends make sense when I pull that data. And so that's going to be important. The correction plan, we've covered a lot of this, but as far as the internal side, campus and department designations, we're going to make sure that the primary has X amount of stipends that they're going to give out. ESL, that may be something that's a little bit more variable, but there should be an X amount of these and X amount of Ys, having some sort of amount to check. We're also going to make sure that the system info equals the stipend list. So when you do pull up our stipend list, if it does say behavior teacher stipend and there's a behavior teacher, that it matches and it doesn't just say special ed. We're going to have periodic reviews of the amounts and the designations, and then like when we get our bank statement, if we have $1,000 in there and we spent $500, I reconcile that to our system, developing some sort of reconciliation process to make sure that the stipends allocated to employees match what we're saying we're doing. This is just a refresher on what's going into the pay scale changes at the next regular meeting. This is part of House Bill 2. The teacher scale, the year 0 uncertified teacher is required by House Bill 2 to make less than a year 0 certified teacher. So they're going to make $1 less than what a certified teacher gets at year 0. This is required of us by House Bill 2. Position, the athletics/head football coach is going to be named director of athletics/coach. The accountant position is going to be removed, and then we're going to bring a business specialist, which is a downgrade in that pay grade. It's going to be less out of function 41. The SLPA, there's a question, why was it on the nurse count? We've moved it on to the actual pay scale itself. It's not on the nurse and librarian pay scale. The stipend, the ESL, it's the ESL supplemental. It previously been labeled elementary and primary, which if you looked at that, you would think that that's all you get if you're elementary, but it's mainly if you have the ESL supplemental certification. Same thing with the VMS/VHS, that's changing to LPAC chair. That's typically only one per campus because they're going to in charge of all of that. And then the life skills aid, it's going to be broken out into life skills/behavior aid for retention purposes in those positions. We've kind of hammered down on this already. So, there's the athletic stipends. Okay. This is the outside of the stipends. This is non-stipend hourly rates. These are just the athletic rates: baseball, basketball, softball, volleyball. On these, there was a question about. And this is something we're going to add to the stipend manual, but defining what these are. Bulldog Academy helps with the STAR assessment. The community library, it's going to be base rate $20, except for a blended rate if with the FSL, the Fair Standard Labors Act that was brought up. So it'll be $20 or a blended rate if you're $20 if you're exempt. Crossing guard, professional hourly pay for miscellaneous. That's going to be for a good example would be new teacher orientation, professional development, if it falls outside of their contract, and then kind of that same idea for paraprofessional pay.
I have a question on I know I'm beating down the community library, but since it's doing the same job, can you do a blended rate? Because a blended rate is more for, I'm a aide, a para, and I'm going to drive a bus. Then you would do the blended rate when you're figuring the overtime. But if you're doing the same job, which if you work in the library and then you're working in the library, isn't that the same job?
That would be yes, you could consider that the same job.
So I wouldn't think that Fair Labor Standard Act, you would be able to do a blended rate. I could be wrong.
Let's say you had somebody who worked in maintenance and then went and worked at the library, so that's where we would use the blended rate because.
Okay, so if it's somebody who is actually a library worker, they're just going to get their regular rate that they always get. Okay.
These are pretty much the same. The district stipends, these are core district stipends, GT campus, fine arts director, the SPED stipends, and we had talked about SPED stipend changes, and we've reverted back to the previous one. So there's no changes, there's no additions.
So we're not going to add the transition coordinator? It's in your manual, but it's not on here.
I pulled this from our.
It's on there.
Oh, where?
Right there. I'm looking at it.
Second from the top.
Okay.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm asking is because it states in the manual that they are going to chaperone students on excursions and day camps and coordinate to ensure compliance of indicator 13 and work with teachers to ensure students participate in vocational assessment. Is that, I know we don't have an 18+ program, but because I know Ms. Petersay said that it was going to be the high school diagnostician. So how is she going to be able to take the students on excursion and day camps and be able to do this to get this amount of money?
That is a great question. That is a great question. I will get you an answer for that there from Ms. Petersay. That's going to take some quite coordination. Like for instance, here you have to schedule those excursions when you don't have ours scheduled in those particular things that's going on.
Right. From what I have, again, done a lot of research on this, it normally is the 18+ program. So is that not something that like the life skills teacher could possibly get, since she's already coordinating and chaperoning the kids to the excursions and stuff like that?
So is that in her job description though?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Could it not be done under, it could be done under job
So
description,
you're saying
yes.
if she's already doing that, is that in her job description?
To chaperone and take to day
To
camps?
do the things she's doing? You're saying she's already doing it.
Right. Normally you have an 18+ program and then you have your life skills classroom, which your life skills classroom does certain things, but your 18+ program might go out to like the food banks or to the library to clean or to city hall to clean, admin building.
And she's doing that.
I do not know if our life skills teacher is doing that now, but that's normally what the transition coordinator is through, is with your life skills teacher, because they already working with their 18+ program.
That is a great question. Why is it designated the diagnostician and not the life skills teacher that's working with those students every day? That's a great question.
And then these are the campus-based stipends by campus. This is still just the same amounts that we've had historically. Just presenting it up there in case there's any questions or concerns. And then we've got the same budget amounts that we've been looking at, so we can roll through them. It's we're still looking at a standard 3% cut, some up, some down. ADA improves, do want to have it go the other way. So, but getting to a balanced budget, it's, where we had to go. And just a recap on the replacement plan for 26-27, we've got grant funding for a bus, so the $60,000. We've got $90,000 for laptops and ID machine. That'll be part of our replacement plan. Is towards the end, sorry. If you're flipping. Yeah. And then that we've got the budgets, payrolls type, if there's any questions, if there's a core group, anything, we are looking at a balanced budget and hopefully going for improved ADA next year. Then we can make some good plans for next year to take care of our people here.
Anybody have any other questions?
What you said about taking care of our people next year?
If our ADA improves, employee retention,
Can we get that in writing?
it's my goal.
Because our faculty's been told for years, that, don't worry, we're not gonna get you this year, we'll get you next year, we'll get you next year, and that just keeps going.
It's a goal.
It never seems to come around. they leveled up some administrative salaries a few years ago because they went back and changed like their years of service and stuff, and they told everybody else, we'll get you next year, and then we changed over superintendent, and they never followed through with what they.
I know we did an increase last year though. Yes.
I do want to just, I know I brought it up in the past, and I'm sure we've talked about it, and I'm sure it's somewhere in the plan to keep an eye on it, but I do still want somebody looking at how we're going to take care of these administrators and the fact that they don't have any sort of set raise plan, something to keep their pay going up to where, because like it was brought up in the past, is right now, if a principal wants to get her worth in years, she'd have to quit and then get rehired, and she'd get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So why do we do that? If she quit and somebody with her same or his same tenure comes in, we're going to pay them that tenure. Why not just pay the person who's been here doing that job if they're worth that, if we're trying to keep them so they don't have to do something like that. I know I brought it up, but I just want to keep that fresh in there because I think it is important to have the people who are running, the people we count on the most to run each not unit, sorry, past business, each facility, each school. We want to keep them running them well, then we need to pay them what they're worth without forcing them to go through the hoops just to get it.
Yes, sir, and Mr. Buck and Mr. Shaw is correct. We, like for instance here, I have looked at our administrator pay, and I'll give you an example. We have principals who have been principals for 11 years, but they're not at the midpoint. It comes back, the question pops up, what is the criteria for getting to a midpoint? And that needs to be looked at. The scale's there. The pay scale's already been approved by the board. It is there, but what is the criteria for getting the midpoint? That hasn't been established, and that's kind of something that we need to look at. I need to look at, hey, we have people that's been here, principal, 11 years.
And kind of my goal during my time on this for as long as I'm allowed to be here is to, before my time is up, is to make sure that even past us, that future, that there's something set to take care of those people, not just, hey, we're going to take care of who's here now, but something that's going to keep carrying on to take care of them after we're done so that somebody else doesn't have to go back and go, hey, why are we not doing this?
And I would like to, everything's procedural. The best is procedural. Do we have a procedure? So that's something budget-wise of looking at. Do we have a procedure for that? Because X principal, we really want. She won't come here because she can't make so-and-so, so we go back and give her credit for her 8 years of assistant principal, which gives her 8 years of assistant principal, 3 years of principal, gives her 11 total years, gets her to the midpoint, so she signs in at X number of thousand. But other principal who came in as a first-year principal but had 10 years of previous AP experience, but when they hired her, they didn't give her credit or him credit for their assistant principal. Is there a procedure that says either A, we give you credit for AP experience, or B, we don't? If it isn't written down, then that gives the superintendent or CFO or HR director that latitude to, because right now you may have 4 principals who all have different levels of experience, but one of them is getting paid at the very top, although they've only been a principal for 3 years, but they make the top of the salary. One of them's been a principal for 20 years, and they get paid below the midpoint. That's my question is, procedurally, do we have anything that holds our accounting department or our superintendent's feet to the fire of, if you want this job and you have 3 years, are we counting only principal experience? Do we count AP experience? If you came in as an HR director at another district and you've been there for 10 years, but you want to be a principal, is that counted? I know Ms. Gore was an HR director, so I don't know how that plays into, at school HR director before, but I don't know how that plays, but it's very wonky on how people are looked at. That kind of goes along with what maybe it's not about what they make, it's about reviewing every 3 years or every 2 years where you fall on the scale. And
yeah, in my business, it's an SOP, it's standard operating procedure and it's the ultimate equalizer. for now and for the future of everybody that comes in, saying, taking out that variable of, oh, well, for her, we're going to accept, 8 years of assistant and the 1 year of being a head principal, stuff like that. So I agree with Ms. Buck that there should be some sort of guideline for that, mostly to take care of the ones who have been here for so long
And that can,
and fighting for what they're doing and staying because they love it, not because, they're the best paid. We at least need to get them what they're worth.
so my question is about procedures. Can we produce a written procedure that we follow? And that applies to assistant superintendent. That applies to, superintendent's salaries are negotiated, but everyone else should be paid on a scale based on prior experience. So if you're an assistant superintendent, you come in with 0 years experience, you should start at 0. If you're a CFO or if you're a HR director, whatever it is.
So not to interrupt, but I think what you're saying is we need to put a procedure in place.
Well, I just didn't know, is there a procedure in place?
No, it's not, sir.
There's
And
not.
is that something that
So
exists?
we need to, we just need to put it in place. Something, because I know in the past, it depends on who the superintendent is and from where they came from, how they did it there. Sometimes you would get half credit if they came from a school district where you came in your scenario. Well, I was assistant principal for 5 years. Well, we'll give you a half a year credit for that. And then you had 2 years as principal, then we'll give you a full year of
But
credit.
that exists in other
for that.
districts, right?
Things like that.
There is a standard operating procedure. written
Yes,
that- Okay.
there is, but then, a new board comes in, it can always change too, so. But anyway, it's usually, it seems like the superintendent of where they came from, how they do it, and what's the right way to do it. So, anyway, okay.
Yes, ma'am, you are correct. We don't have a standard procedure where, like, for instance, here, like Mr. Shaw's saying, every couple of years, we're going to go and bring people in and review on where they're at. We don't have anything written down, but what I'm hearing, what I can do, I can make up a procedure, send it to the board for you guys review and present it to you next board meeting. Okay?
Okay. Any other questions for Lanny?
We should need to put that slide in there.
Just take it out.
No more questions.
Thank you very much for putting all of this together and doing all of this. Really, really appreciate it. Yep. Item 8, executive session. We do not have a need to go into executive session unless somebody needed to. Don't do it. So we will go to item 10. Did anybody have any requests for anything or anything?
Anything or anything?
Well, 9 was coming back.